Welcome to Stribling's New York. I'm your host, Rob Taub, on WOR AM Radio 710 on your digital dial and iHeart Media Company. Stribling's New York is a show about business, culture, people. We have an amazingly wide range of guests from authors, producers, actors, artists, restaurateurs, as well as people from the world of real estate who can help you buy or sell or rent an apartment. And today is a really special day. I'm going to call it Authors Day because we have some of the most well-known fiction writers in the world on our show. And our first guest is the amazing Steve Berry, who is an international bestseller. And his books, he sold amazingly over 20 million copies in 51 countries. Welcome, Steve. He's on the phone. Are you in Georgia right now?
Oh, no, I'm in Florida right now.
Okay. And
I live in St. Augustine.
You've got a wonderful accent. That's a Georgia accent, though.
It is.
It is a great accent.
Oh, Tony Simone, our
Georgia.
producer, is also in the studio if you hear another voice pop in.
Yeah, I lived in Georgia all my life till about 6 years ago, so I have that still in me.
I want to talk about your book, The 14th Colony, but I also know that you were a lawyer for 30 years. So when you were practicing law, obviously successfully, did you ever think about, I'm going to write a book one day, or I'm going to write 20 books? Did that cross your mind?
Yeah, it did. I mean, in the 1980s, I had that little voice in my head that was telling me to write, that all writers have, and I ignored it for 10 years. And finally, in 1990, I listened to it, and I was still a lawyer at the time, and it took me 12 years from the day I wrote my first word to the day I sold my first word, and I was a lawyer all during that time. And then I wrote 7 books and published 7 books as a lawyer. So, I was able to transition from being a lawyer to being a full-time commercial fiction writer.
And you also have a great interest in history. So was that a factor as well?
Oh, yeah. I've had history since I was a kid, and I tell all the time, don't write what you know. Writing what you know is lousy advice. Instead you write what you love. If what you know and what you love are the same thing, great. It wasn't for me, though. I loved action, history, secrets, conspiracies, international settings, those kinds of things. And so when I gravitated to write, that's what I went towards, not towards the law.
What's amazing about this show is I've had close probably to 100 authors now, most of them best-selling authors, and they're all great. They all write books that are fascinating and exciting and great to read, but almost everyone has a different story as to how they got to where they are, which is what I find more fascinating than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone has a different path. Some were very lucky. They got it the first time out. Some only after a few rejections. For me, though, it was 85 rejections before I made it. So my path was a little more arduous, but my story is not atypical. It's very common for it to take that many years.
So tell us about the 14th Colony.
It's Cotton Malone's latest adventure. He's my recurring character. He's been in several novels, and he's back. We deal with something very timely, the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, which is the amendment of how you become president, how you succeed to the presidency. And it poses an interesting question. What happens when the president-elect and the vice president-elect both die before taking the oath of office? There's actually a flaw in the Constitution and a flaw in federal law that creates total chaos if that was to happen. And so my antagonist is going to take advantage of that chaos.
This is a great story. And when is the release date of the book?
Well, it's already out.
It is out. My God. Okay, shows my due diligence is really good here for a lawyer. I'm embarrassed to do this.
We all need to read it over the 4th.
Well, it's going to be for sale at the International Thriller Convention at the Hyatt Hotel next week. This week.
At Thriller Fest next week, I will be there, and books are there. It's out in stores now. You can get it everywhere in all formats: hardcover, however, audio, whatever you like. And it's been doing very well. And hopefully, people who've not checked me out before could check out the 14th Colony. And don't be put off by the fact it's a series. I write the books where you do not have to read them in any order. You can read them in any order you like, and so feel free to start any place.
I found this with all great writers fiction, and especially crime fiction and thrillers. Lee Child, you could pick up any of his books, and he'll always throw in some encapsulation of his hero, and you'll know pretty quickly what the guy is about, especially after he beats somebody up.
which is probably on page 1.
Yes, exactly.
Happens pretty quick there.
Well, with you, Steve, I will have to say you're really what I would call a writer's writer, because when I've walked around Thriller Fest, I see other writers who are world-renowned, and they're always going, look, Steve Berry's over there. That's Steve Berry. They kind of say it in hushed tones with great reverence.
That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate that. I just, I don't look at it that way, and I'm a working commercial fiction writer trying to scratch out a living at it, and it's a tough business out there. I've been very fortunate though to get a nice audience and a set of books, and everything is kind of gone. It didn't happen overnight though. As I said, it was a 12-year process, and then it's been another. This is the 13th year being published, so it's been a 25-year process of building that audience. So I've just been very fortunate that it worked out for me.
Okay, so now another thing I'm curious about, because this is another thing. Like two of my favorite writers are Lee Child and Robert Crace, and they couldn't be more different because Crace does heavy research and Lee makes everything up as he goes along. Do you have a style and technique?
I'm more like Crace. I have heavy research. My books deal with history, something from history. It's a modern-day thriller, but it deals with history, which I try to keep 90% accurate. So my books take a full 12 months of work to put together because of the fact that I weave the story with the historical elements being as accurate as humanly possible. So it's a little bit more. I'd love to be more like Lee, where the books can be written a little quicker and a little smoother and a little faster. That would be wonderful, but I've kind of carved out my niche of history and keeping it as close to history as I can.
Well, I'm going to urge everybody, not just on the broadcast, but the podcast, to read The 14th Colony by Steve Berry. Do we have a website that everybody can go to?
We do. SteveBerry.org has everything you're looking for.
It's BERRY, STEVEBERRY.org. Thanks so much for joining us, Steve, and I will see you at Thriller Fest.
I'll see you there.
Bye.